the
No,
knight
I
would be
guess
on
it's...
g7, so it defends e6.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
what do we want to activate?
Oh, so we want to get our other rook in the game.
Mm-hmm. So how do we
So
do it the best
we
way?
could do that with tempo by playing rook e1.
Yeah.
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 And then we're threatening checking stuff on e7.
Mhm.
So on rook e1, he'll probably play maybe bishop c5.
Sure. And then?
Um, oh, but then we still have that fork,
Which one?
right?
Which one?
The fork on queen. Oh, but we could fork. We would fork all three. We'd fork the king, knight, and bishop. So actually, bishop c5 is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So rook e. Oh wait, I've already forgot. Oh, but he's already played. He's already played knight somewhere.
Yeah, he's playing knight
to prevent
g7,
that
right?
fork. But it would still be a fork on king and. Oh no, we'd be dropping our queen if we played. Yeah, so don't do that.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But yeah, I mean, really, the basic point is black's basically playing down 2 rooks is the key, and so
Yeah, because he can't get them activated.
yeah, it's almost impossible to get them activated because we have this threat of queen f5. So
So the real benefit of having the queen on the 7th rank is that he can't connect the rooks.
right, exactly,
to defend each other.
exactly. And we always have ideas to like just take this pawn or something if we want to, and gain another pawn. And then also we have 3 versus 1 on this side, so we should be able to force a queen, like if it ends up being like a queen versus rook and bishop endgame or something. But yeah, the fact that this king is so stuck. I mean, we have simply some sort of idea just to like rook e1, rook e5, and rook f5, and just try to mate that way. And it's actually kind of hard to mate that. So black is actually completely lost here. And yeah, so, but again, the fact that black's pieces were kind of all every which way on the board, and the fact that we had, a couple of our pieces active, namely that rook and our queen, meant that we need to play very forcefully. So it didn't really matter what we were temporarily sacrificing, but once we got our pieces out, it was going to be more than enough to kind of compensate for whatever material disadvantage we had.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you have to realize that in that position that black was kind of threatening to consolidate. So, yeah, so the position kind of dictated what our plan was going to be. So, okay. Let's do. One more. Find the right one. Okay, let's see which one should be the right one. Let's do. Okay, let's do this one. So let's talk about this one. So this is again like a late opening, early middle game. Okay. So what's going on in this position? Okay. I think that.
Alright,
Yep.
so black has a space advantage due to his d-pawn,
Mhm.
but his d-pawn will become a target for us at some point. The c-file is open, and it's not really clear who would seize it.
Mhm.
But we may not want to. We may just want to put our rooks on the d-file and put a bunch of pressure against the d-pawn.
Mhm.
So since the pawn on d5 is blocking in the light squared bishop, I'd say our and actually the d pawn is providing a target for our light squared bishop. I'd say our light squared bishop is better than
Okay.
his.
Yeah. What about dark square?
Our dark squared bishop. Well, let's see. So it's a sort of equal range,
Yep.
but is maybe we can't really do anything useful with a dark squared bishop, but I guess he can't really either. Maybe.
I mean, they're both pointing at the king, so it's about the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the rooks?
So our rooks will be easier to employ probably because we can easily just double them up. But actually, he can also double up on the d file if he wanted to cover his pawn.
Can he also go on the c file?
Yes, so he could also double up on the c file and try to infiltrate that way instead of defending, using them to defend.
Right. So, is anyone's rooks any better really here?
No.
Okay. And how about the queen? About the same.
Yes.
And how about the knights? Whose knight's better?
I'd say blacks because the pawn on d5 is sort of dominating our knight.
Yep, it's true. So what are the weaknesses now?
So obviously for black, d5 is a weakness.
Because it's what kind of pawn?
Isolated.
Yep. So what's the important square for an isolated pawn?
The square in front of it.
Right.
So we need to blockade.
So who controls that square currently?
So we control it pretty thoroughly with a pawn and a bishop.
Yep, it's true.
So if we wanted to, we could blockade the pawn, but we don't really need to at the moment.
Right.
Other weak squares, so b7 is kind of weak.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of hard to get to.
It's not easy to mobilize against it.
Yeah. Do we have any weak squares of our own?
c2 is weak, so if black wanted to infiltrate using his rooks, c2 would be a target. Let's see. Other weak squares. That's kind of it, I think.
Well,
maybe
d3 weak, maybe.
Yes, d3 is also weak.
I mean, it's hard for us to. It's hard for black to put anything there because there's no pawns to support it. But
right.
So, what would we like to try to do to try to claim an advantage here? So like it makes sense, for example, to, like you said, put a rook on the c file and contest the c file. But is that really going to give us an advantage, or?
No, and we should be able to prevent him from infiltrating on the c file anyway with something like queen d3, maybe, and then bring the bishop to cover, maybe. So I don't think his rooks on the c file are too big of an issue.
Well, we can always contest the c file with our own rooks. Like if he plays rook c8, we can play rook c1, right?
Yeah. So instead, trying to use our rooks on the d file is probably preferable. So maybe just rook d1, but it probably doesn't matter which one.
Okay. But are we ever going to put enough pressure on d5 to be able to win it?
So we only have one minor piece pointing at it. So, but on the other hand, if we double up on the d file, then, well, I guess something like e4 isn't really a threat because he could just, like, there's no way we're going to uncover the bishop on
Right.
d6.
That bishop's going to be moving in the near future.
Yeah, so maybe we can't, and because we can't get our knight in to attack, or maybe we want to start redirecting our knight to pressure against d5. If we want to win it, we have to. So
right, but where is that knight going to go to try to get to d5?
Well, I guess we could just do b1 to c3, but if we were to do that, we would have to play bishop d4 first, so he doesn't have the opportunity of pushing.
Right.
But yeah, knight b1 to c3 would be the way of redirecting the knight. Or, no, that's not an option. I was thinking if you first played rook d1, then you could play like rook f1 to e3, but that doesn't really have any advantages over playing knight b1 to c3.
Right, but is black going to be able to do something in the meantime to kind of counteract that?
Um, so he could also place rooks on the D file, or a rook on the D file to cover, in which case we still can't bring enough force to win it.
Right, and also does he have an idea of maybe trying to, once our knight's on c3, what's blocked?
So the bishop is then blocked. And
Moves. So is there a way he
so
can
then,
maybe trade the pawn off for our pawn at some point with like d4? Like he can play like bishop e5 and then d4.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if he can control the D4 square, then we're not controlling it with anything other than the bishop right now. So
Right.
yeah.
So what's our plan here then?
Preemptively blockade the pawn with bishop D4. I think.
Okay, but is that actually accomplishing anything?
No, and actually it allows us to redirect the knight without blocking in the bishop, but then actually he'll be able to play. Well, then that'll be blocking out our rook from accessing or from attacking d5 if it gets to d1, so that doesn't really work. We could take on f6, and then he has one fewer defender of the pawn, and then
But what problems does that pose?
He can take with the queen, and then his queen is on a really strong diagonal.
But what does it actually get rid of though?
Oh, it gets rid of the piece that's controlling d4.
I mean, what's our best piece right now, basically?
Oh, so our dark scored bishop is
So
really
it basically trades off our best piece for. I mean, his knight's doing something, but it's probably technically his worst piece, and it gives him the two bishops, right?
right.
Yeah, I mean e6 is not great, but I mean it can go to f5, and then on f5 that's actually pretty strong. So okay. So what should white do here then?
So if we've sort of discarded the idea of trying to attack d5 because it's too difficult, other options include. Well, what are his other weaknesses? I guess is the question. I mean, like b7 is kind of weak, but it's not possible to really take advantage of that fact. I think.
Right. This is kind of tricky.
Maybe we want to. So our knight is still our worst piece, even if knight b1 to c3 isn't really a good idea. We could redirect the knight in a different way.
That's a good idea.
So I don't know. We would have to vacate the f square because there's nowhere you can go on the queen side that wouldn't lose material.
Right.
So we could start with rook d1 with the idea that we want a rook on the d file regardless, even if we can't forcibly win the pawn, and then play knight f1 to maybe g3.
Okay, but where's it going from g3?
Nowhere useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so redirection of the knight is not really an option.
Don't give up on it yet.
Oh, well, we could just say, if we didn't really care about the weakness, we could play just e4 ourselves. And then if pawn takes, retake with a knight. And then
what are we threatening?
Then we're threatening b7 with our bishop, I guess.
Wow.
So it opens up our bishop on
f3.
Yeah.
But what else are we threatening?
Okay, so what happened? We played
e4.
e4.
He took.
He took, so knight takes, and then we're threatening to win the bishop pair by taking, so he's sort of obliged to take with his knight.
But what else are we threatening? Not necessarily like, winning material, but what are we threatening strategically? What's being attacked?
So then we're also threatening maybe knight takes knight, and then
what would he have to take with?
He would have to retake with a pawn because our bishop would be on it.
And then would his king be good or bad?
His king security would be crippled.
Yes.
So.
Okay. So is e4 a good move?
Yes.
Are you
Even though
sure?
it takes away an obvious target, it activates our pieces more because our pieces are kind of stuck attacking things that can't be won right now. I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
so. I think it's a good idea.